Alright, it's just been released to the SVN, so it's time to switch over and adapt and become better at ExpressionGate2. Now, I'm not gonna get into the vectors and the goddamn entities and all that crap. I'm just gonna tell you how to write the stuff from an old expression, E1, in a new expression, E2, because the syntax does change. Old expression. You didn't have to write the word if, it just was assumed for every line. And it would put in this: if ranger is greater than 0, the little arrow there would represent then fire equals 1. And then you'd have to put a semicolon and do the opposite of that for the next line, so that it would shut off the fire command. It would be ranger is equal to 0 or not equal to 0, or whatever the hell the opposite of that one would be. Then fire is equal to 0, semicolon. And that I have over here in this expression, which is an E1. Now, the other way I taught you to do it is with one of these lines: fire is equal to 1, and the ranger is greater than 0. And then this system means if the ranger is not greater than 0, then it outputs a 0 to fire, and that's fine. And that stays exactly the same in E2, except that you need spaces on this back end, because the colon is used in another part of the E2 coding, so it'll get confused. You have to put a space here, or it won't validate, and you'll be very confused for a long time. Did not need a space in E1, you do need a space in E2. Alright, now, I don't like coding in general. I failed all my classes. I didn't fail my classes, I just didn't like them. But this is how you would write an if-then statement with a cancel statement in the new expression. You have to write the word if. You have to write it out. It does not assume if anymore. So if parentheses, ranger is greater than 0. And now here we switch from parentheses to braces. That's what those things are called. And in braces, you put it. That's what the action has occurred after the then statement. If ranger is greater than 0, then switch over to then. Fire is equal to 1. Now, to shut off the fire is equal to 1, you can put an else below it. So if and else. If then else fire is equal to, oh, I made that a 0. That should be, it made that a 1, it should be a 0. This wouldn't actually shut off. Let's hope I did better in the actual coding of it on these chips, which I'm going to show you now. First, expression 1. Alright, now here is an example of an E1 with this system. Fire is equal to ranger, less than 0, 1, 0. And I put two inputs and outputs so I could show you that they both are working separately. So R2, ranger 2 is equal to 0, fire 2 is equal to 1, ranger 2 is equal to 0, fire 2 is equal to 0. So those both work. Now here is ExpressionGate2. You go to this. You only come in this model, which is suck because I really like the big one. You go down to Open Editor. Mine is Force. Oh god. Oh, Control Z undoes. That's excellent. Alright, now, here it is now. The new editor is so much better than the old editor. You can, look, you could put spaces in. It highlights your errors. It shows you what are commands. If and else are blue. Ranger, fire, all these variables are green. Anything that's a number that makes sense to it becomes red. It's excellent. Now, it's very hard to tell the braces from the parentheses, but they are there. So if ranger is greater than 0, then it switches over to then. Between there, then fire is equal to 1, or else fire is equal to 0. And the same thing here, only with space, space, space. I just put spaces on the last whole part of it. And I put this in here to show you something. On E1, if you added a variable just out of nowhere, pulled it out of, the letter X is equal to ranger plus ranger 2. You just pull that out of your ass. You can put it there and use it in the expression, and no one's going to say a word. It's fine. In E2, however, you can't do that. You have to list all variables you're dealing with. So this last column here persists. I put the letter X in, and then I can use it. If I don't put it in here, I will get a validation error. It's to list any variables you make up in the expression up here under persists. So if you're going to use an x and you're going to multiply something by an x, x is equal to this. If it's not an input or an output and it's just going to bounce around inside the expression, you have to list it here. Now, due to this new system, you do not have to leave these on one line. So right here, I could take the outputs list, and I believe if you're going to put multiple outputs, by the way, put commas between them. Note that. But you could actually just separate on multiple lines. So if Ranger is greater than 0, fire equals 1, but equals 1, next line, flying, but equals 3, 2, whatever. And you can spread them out as long as you put the end braces afterwards. It'll know what you're talking about. And I've seen people where they completely, like that works, and that works, and that still works. I'll shut off flying, but. You could have it look like that, which, I don't know, do you want it like that? Here. There. That easier for you to understand? I don't think it is. Let's update the, oop. There, I've updated it. Does it still work? Yeah, it still works. So, you can pretty much, you can't screw up the syntax. Because as long as you have start and end brackets, parentheses, and braces, it'll work fine. I like singular lines, keeping it straight, but anything you want to do. And just remember, if you're going to have a external variable, an internal variable, listed under persists, and you have to fill all this out, and you save it, and that thing closes, and opens, and you update. Let's look at this example they've double-click, maybe? Yeah, there, double-click opens it up. No idea what this gray box is, by the way. I think it's something screwy. This is for vectors. Oh god, I'm not even gonna get into vectors this fucking time. I have to learn, when I learn vectors, you people will learn vectors. So that's ExpressionGate2, the simplified, simple version of the simpleness. So don't use it. It's much faster than E1, although you won't really notice it with things like this, but it's much easier to edit. And that's all I have to say tonight. Just catch you later.